Two Cooks in the Kitchen. Today we will be making a blueberry cheesecake tart with a shortbread crust. And we will begin with the crust. We have 1.5 cups of flour, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and a 1/2 cup of powdered sugar for starters here. And we're going to give that a little blitz, as they say in the biz, just to kind of mix it all up well. And then we're going to add 3/4 cup of butter. And these recipes are always calling for cold butter, and by the time you cut it up, it's halfway warmed up. So I cut this butter and then put it in the fridge. So now it's all nice and cold. And just kind of distribute it around the bowl here. This up now until we get something with a grain that's about the size of a pea, is how I always describe it. And it should be pretty floury looking, but there should be enough butter in here to make it hold together when you squeeze it. Let's see if we're anything like what we're looking for here. That's this grain that's definitely smaller than a pea, but you'll see it definitely clumps when you squeeze it together. So I think that's our dough, and we're going to turn that out into our tart pan. Kind of looks like more than we're going to need, but we'll see. Have to see what happens when we smoke it down here. Wow, that just looks like a lot, doesn't it?
We always have one more little extra tin.
That's true.
We've been collecting.
Yeah, I think I'm going to carry on that tradition. So we have these smaller tart pans, and we have 4 of them. And every time I make a tart, I seem to have enough leftover dough to fill one of those. So I've got 3 of them in the freezer now, and this will make 4, so I can make some mini tarts here pretty soon. So the idea, what we're looking for here, is about 1/4 inch thick all the way around. And this is a very strange one because it seems so powdery, but in reality, when you push it together, it's really not. And we're going to blind bake this with pie weights. Because the finished product here does not all get baked together. So I've already shown you 2 very foolproof pie crusts that I like to make, the savory crust and the pecan crust. So it's always a risk doing any other kind of crust. You never know. This one, I think, is going to be pretty good. It has all the proper characteristics of a good shortbread. here. All right.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to put on the parchment paper, put in the pie weights, and this is going to go into a 350-degree oven for 15 to 20 minutes, and should be all nicely cooked by then. And then we'll start working on the filling. So here we are. This is 15 minutes in the oven. It hasn't browned yet, so I'm going to put it back in. I took the pie weights out. I'll put it back in for another 5 minutes or so. And I should point out, remember, tart pans tend to leak, so it's always good to cook it on a cookie sheet. So our crust is done. This actually spent 25 minutes total in the oven, and you can see it's nicely browned around the outside, and it's definitely done in the middle. So it's time to build our cheesecake layer. I have a half cup of whipped cream, which I have whipped into very, very stiff because I'm going to fold everything else in there, so I want to keep some of its body at that point. I have one 8-ounce package of cream cheese, to which we're going to add 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract. And please, please, please always use real vanilla extract. Do not use the fake stuff. When I was younger, I lived in a town with a pulp mill, and they built a vanilla factory to use the waste that came out of the pulp mill. So that's where your fake vanilla comes from. Not pleasant. So all we're going to do is combine this. And what I want to do is get the sugar mixed in with the cream cheese so it doesn't fly everywhere. And then I'm going to use the beaters to kind of try and get it fluffy. And you know, you have to have clean beaters for the whipped cream, but you don't have to have clean beaters for this. So you do the whipped cream first, and then you can use the beaters for this. And yeah, it's a little messy, but we'll get some air in this and then fluff out. Now let's see how we did. Oh yeah, that's looking pretty good down in there. Get this off the beaters. This is kind of sticky stuff. So there's nothing for it but just to get in there and get mucky. And you see that's a beautiful cream in there now. So we're going to take this and fold it into our whipped cream. It's a little tricky. We don't want to smash all the air out of the whipped cream. That's all. But we do need to get it mixed in. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. This doesn't have to be perfect. You know, a little pocket of whipped cream when you're going through the piece of pie might not be bad. You know? And then this crust is completely cooled, which is a very important thing. You don't want to be putting this in a warm crust. But now we're just going to spread this into our crust. See if we can get it nice and even here. Well, that's looking pretty good. And we're going to chill this now. I want it to really set up pretty firm. So we'll chill this for at least an hour, and we'll work on our blueberry filling, or I guess it's actually a topping at this point. And come back and finish up our tart. All right, so while our crust and cheesecake layer are in the fridge, we can create our blueberry layer. This has to cool before we can put it on the chill and everything else, so we'll just keep going. Here's a half cup of water, 2/3 of a cup of sugar.
Nope, lung burner.
2/3 of a cup of sugar, a tablespoon or so of lemon zest,
1 low-flying airplane.
a 1/4 cup of lemon juice, 1 teaspoon of our real vanilla extract, incoming,
She's flying really low.
and 3 tablespoons of cornstarch. And then we're going to use a whisk to make sure that this all gets mixed well as it heats up. And when it comes to things like cornstarch, you know, you could be stirring this with a spoon and still have lumps, but if you use a whisk, it just really seems to do the job and make sure we have no lumps. And then we're going to add our 3 cups of blueberries. And we're going to bring this all to a slow boil and let it cook for about 5 minutes. Not a, not a raging boil or anything. But what we want to have happen here is for the blueberries to pop and release all their juice. And maybe not all the blueberries have to pop. Maybe half of them is fine. So we'll let this cook along here for a minute and come back when it's getting close to done. All right, so our berries have been cooking along here. We're about five minutes ago, they started simmering. And then you can see what's happening here is they're kind of breaking down a little, and we're getting some juice in here, and the cornstarch is thickening it. So I think we're gonna call this done. We're gonna turn it off, and now it's gotta cool. And there's kind of a delicate balancing act here because you don't want it to cool enough that it turns solid, because you got to pour it into the pie, but you really don't want it to be too warm for the to melt the cheesecake. So we're just going to let this cool for quite a while, and then we'll put it in our tart. I should mention too that these are blueberries we picked at Noble Farms out in Fieldbrook last year, and they've been sitting in our freezer waiting for an opportunity like this, and it's almost time to pick more blueberries, so we really needed to get them used up. All right, our berries have cooled down. They're still semi-pourable. This is going to be very, very full here, so I'm going to hold off on putting all of it on here for a minute. Get this worked out to the edge. Tricky. Just don't want that little bit of white showing. It's going to show anyway, I guess. But,
I don't think it's so bad.
well, you know, it's not perfection. All right. I don't think I can put any more on here. And what we're going to do next is put this back in the fridge to set up a little better. It's pretty darn full. And then we can garnish it. All right, so this is set up in the fridge for a while. We popped it out of the tart pan, and look at that. Garnished it with, there were some huckleberries that we picked today, some blackberries we picked today as well. Raspberries, they were not picked today. The strawberries were, and the mint leaves. So here we go. It's gonna be delicious. Thank you for watching Two Cooks in the Kitchen. We'll see you next time.